Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Athenian EmpowHer podcast, where we highlight women leaders and their journeys in their professional world pursuing their passions. I'm Siri, and today we have a wonderful guest, Heather Caputo. Heather is a pediatric hospitalist at Kaiser Permanente and is also a part of the residency training program. We'll be learning more about her work as a pediatrician and advice she has for young women looking to pursue medicine. So, whether you're a future doctor, an aspiring design major, or just someone who loves a good story about a successful and inspiring woman, this episode is for you. Heather, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you here for the fifth episode of season one.
Thank you so much, Siri. That was such a nice introduction. It's a pleasure to be asked to join such an amazing network of young women.
Okay, just like starting strong, of all the medical professions you could have pursued coming out of medical school, why did you decide that pediatrics was the one for you?
In medical school, you're thrown into all these different situations, and I didn't really know. Some people know from like day one, from it, middle school, high school, what they want to do. I really was trying to go into all the different rotations with my eyes open. I considered OB. I really liked attending deliveries of babies. I knew pretty quickly in dealing with adults and older adults that did not bring me as much joy. I felt like those illnesses that age group presented with were sometimes, self-induced, and I just did not feel that connection. And when I did my pediatrics rotation, I just remember feeling such empathy for families and really wanting to help that population, because it's not just a sick child, it's their whole family that this is affected, and they are the center of that family. And so really supporting their parents, their aunts and uncles, grandmas through that time. I also really felt like children are so resilient and strong and often overcome the illnesses that they face. So it was a really rewarding rotation for me. And I felt like I could see pretty quickly the difference that I was making in people's lives. Most kids leave the hospital healthy and happy and sort of return to baseline. And it was just a really sweet population. They're really innocent. They see, seeing the world through a child's eyes is a gift, and they just, emit joy. So it's hard to be in the room with. When they're sick, it's not as joyful, but when they're starting to feel better, experiencing their smiles and their giggles, it's an extremely rewarding specialty.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I guess you could say, more connected to your patients when you were working with the kids rather than the other age groups?
Definitely. So yeah. And especially since becoming a mother, before I had my own child, I still felt connected, but it was different. I could sort of more easily remove myself from situations. Since becoming a mother, you sort of put yourself, or at least I do, I put myself in the shoes of that patient's mother and try to really give those families a lot of grace, because I can imagine myself in that situation. If I were facing a health challenge with my child, I would be really looking for someone that was compassionate and understanding and patient with me. So I try to look at it through that lens, and it's really easy to connect with other mothers in that way that are going through, the life-changing experience of motherhood. So I definitely feel more bonded with mothers now since becoming one of my own. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then obviously following that question, within the pediatric age group, what like age range of kids do you find the most joy in taking care of, like babies, teenagers?
The teens are tough. I do find that rewarding, because you kind of realize that they know a lot, have really a lot of emotional depth. And so helping them is often the most rewarding. Whereas with babies, they can't really, other than smiling and giggling and making eye contact, there's not that kind of dialogue. So I've definitely felt really bonded with some teenage patients. But I would say, like we've been talking about, seeing a really happy, healthy, like 1 to 2 year old toddler that can communicate with you and smile and interact with you is probably my favorite age. I also like the newborn. I mean, I not to not answer the question. I mean, I enjoy all the ages. I like the really tiny newborns that are kind of scrunched up and still just really new to the world. Because I find those parents are the most just like deer in headlights and sleep deprived. And so that's really a sweet time in their life to kind of help people through a difficult moment. So,
Yeah. You say like on a regular day to day like
yeah.
basis when you do your rounds and whatnot, do you see pretty much every age group?
We do. So, working in Oakland, we're a really diverse, big tertiary care center. So, we see, I would say, like if I were to look at the patient list right now, which I won't do because I'm not working today, but if I were to, I would see, I imagine, anywhere from a newborn, like a week old, to there's probably some teens on the ward too. So, we see really the whole gamut of age ranges and diagnoses. So, I mean, that's the great thing about medicine is, or at least inpatient medicine is my day is never the same. My list of patients that I need to see changes every single day. So it's really always interesting. Yes, hard, but like the diverse, diagnosis that we see is really incredible.
Yeah, it's like a new challenge every
A
day.
new challenge
New
every day.
faces, hopefully new faces every day.
Yep. 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 A familiar face as far as our team, like our team doesn't change every day. Work with a big team, the nurses, the respiratory therapists, the pharmacists. We all go together on rounds and see all the patients. And each room that we walk into is a completely different dynamic, different needs, different communication styles, different education background, ethnicities. And so it's like each room is a different situation to help and solve. And so it's really, really, really rewarding.
Yeah. Do you think for those listening, if they don't know what rounds are, if they don't have like a
Yeah.
healthcare background, could you quickly explain what it is?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we have, I take care of patients in the hospital, not in the clinic like you see your pediatrician for well checks. That's not what I do. We're in the hospital, and so any patient that's hospitalized at our facility, we do what's called family-centered rounds. So we go as a big team to each room one at a time. We go from room 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and we see all the patients that are under our care, and we include the families with us on rounds, obviously. And the nurses and the pharmacists and the dietitians come with us. So we call that rounds. When we go to each room, we communicate what's going on, what are we worried about, what do we think the diagnosis is, what are the new treatment plans, what are the plans for the day, any changes we're going to make. And then we talk a little bit about like discharge criteria. What does this patient have to do in order to go home? So we call that rounds. That occupies really the most of my day. It's like the majority of the morning I spend rounding. And it's great. I get to work with the junior learners, the residents, and the rest of the medical team and the wonderful families.
Okay, so since you mentioned residents and how they come in the rounds with you, knowing that you are involved in the residency training program, which trains medical students and aspiring pediatricians in the hospital, what is some advice that you give to them as they're on their journey pursuing healthcare?
So, residency is a really challenging part of your medical journey. That is after medical school and before you are like an attending physician, you do your residency training in a specialty. So, I try to give them some perspective that it is a very difficult period of time. It's probably the hardest three. I'm being vague about the time because it depends on your specialty, but for peds, 3 years, it's a very difficult 3 years, but I try to remind them that it's only 3 years and that when they're done, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. They'll have a more regular schedule. They'll be making more money. They'll have more autonomy. So, as difficult as it is, I try to remind them to enjoy that part because that is, you know, when it is acceptable to be such a learner with lots of questions, not to know everything. It's okay not to know everything, to ask the questions then, because once you're an attending, yes, you can still ask questions, but you're, I think, expected to know the answer most of the times. And so as a resident, I'm like, take advantage of that learning curve, that growth curve. Ask your attendings questions, really soak it all in, have fun, bond with your fellow residents. I think I was really lucky. During residency, I had a great group of colleagues, and we became the best of friends, lifelong friends, people that I still, communicate with to this day. And I think bonding with someone during a time like that really gives you strength, leaning on each other. Yeah, I try to, remind them to keep a positive outlook. It's going to be very difficult, but it's also such a blessing, such an honor to take care of patients, especially children, and not to forget that, not to lose sight of what made you want to do medicine, because there will be times in the middle of the night when you're getting called that you'll be like, what am I doing? Is this the right career for me? To try to ground yourself and remind yourself why you picked this career and to focus on the rewarding nature of it. So yeah, lots of advice, I think. Staying positive, bonding with people that are going through the same thing, and remembering that it's a finite period of time, that you're not going to be a resident. You're not going to be, working that hard for the rest of your life. So
You feel that when you were a resident, that
yeah.
your mentors, you passed down their advice that they gave to you along to future colleagues of yours.
Yeah, I definitely had some mentors that come to mind, and learned a lot from those people. One person comes into mind that was just an extremely hard worker, um, and kind of took each day with stride and stayed positive. And looking up to them, I think, helped kind of form who I became ultimately. And I also had some senior residents above me that were really tough and just would tell me, like, just keep checking on your patients, go to the bedside, don't just call the nurse and see how they're doing, go to the bedside, touch them, talk to them, and treat other humans with respect. That, those types of basic things go a long way when you're in my shoes, I think, and sort of shape who you are as a physician. So, yeah.
I see. Yeah. And then coming off that from residency, what is something, obviously, since you're teaching a lot
Yeah,
and explaining to people, what is something that you have learned from either your residents or even your patients?
that is a good question, Siri. What have I learned? I mean, the residents, I think, part of the reason that I'm at Kaiser Oakland is because of the residents, and just having, we get a new batch, a new year of residents every July, and they come in, they have new energy, they're just starting, they're excited. They are close to medical school, so they still know all the pathophysiology, and they ask really tough questions of us. So they keep us, up to date. It's not like you can just become this stagnant doctor that's doing things the way you did them when you were trained. It's like you always have to kind of keep up to date on the newest treatment modalities and evidence-based medicine, because the residents are going to call you on that, and they're going to ask you, well, why aren't you doing it this way? And I learned to do things this way, and this article says this. So that's part of the joy of working with the residents, is that they're keeping you on your toes, keeping you humble. I think every day I learn from patients, like, the power of a strong family and positive outlook. I do feel like the families that just really put a lot of positive energy into healing, those patients thrive as compared to, like, a really anxious or stressed out room when you walk in there, and sort of how that kind of plays out compared to a family who is very positive minded. Now, that's easier said than done. I mean,
Yeah.
we can all spiral and worry, and that can negatively affect your health. And I realize how difficult that is, but I definitely have seen the families that just have a lot of support, strength, and positivity around their children seem to do a lot better. And that's definitely something that I've learned. I mean, it's been 10 years now, but the hospital that we moved into was brand new. And I remember walking in and just being like, your environment affects you. And the old hospital was feeling kind of gray and,
Like
and,
a
and,
hospital.
old. And we got this brand new building with beautiful, paintings and murals. We're on the 12th floor. We have a beautiful view. And I think, working in an environment that's beautiful also really sets your mind.
Okay, for our final question, what advice would you give to someone looking to pursue pediatrics, and how do you feel that you empower others through your job?
Advice to anybody pursuing medicine, but specifically peds, I think, work hard, study hard. I think the more effort you put in now, it's just going to make things a little bit easier down the road. We're trying to sort of change the whole way that we look at applicants and look at a more holistic approach to them, like who they are as people, what have they done for the community, not just go based on test scores and grades. But, that being said, there's still a little bit of that involved with like, you've got to, do fairly well in school, be well-rounded. So I think probably my take-home advice is to really do something outside of just academia, like you're doing, like do something that brings you joy, and we can see that in your application, whether it's playing a sport or an instrument or volunteering and giving back to the community. Do something different that makes you a really well-rounded applicant. And we will see that, if you're just someone who's really studied hard and got good grades, but that's like the only aspect to your personality, we're less likely to kind of, select you for a spot. We like well-rounded applicants with some kind of diversity, something that makes you unique or something that makes you stand out. So exploring your passions for sure. What do I do to empower junior learners? I think I, have worked with some struggling residents. Each year there's a couple that I think are struggling. And, struggling means different things. Some people, it's an emotional toll that dealing in such a high stress environment takes on them, or sometimes it's just like medical knowledge, and really working with those people, coming up with a plan to help them get better, frequent check-ins, and really just some positive reinforcement. Like, you can do this. Like, you did not get to residency because you were, you lacked motivation or you weren't smart enough. Like, you got here because of all those things. Like, if you're here, you can do this. And so to kind of keep that mindset of like, we just need to figure out how and how we can support you. So, I try to think of the residents, and I do think of the residents like colleagues. I don't feel like they're just there to help me and it's this one-way street where they better do all this hard work. No, it's a two-way street. I want to help them get to whatever career they're dreaming of, whatever fellowship they might want to do. That's our job, is to help them with that. Yeah. And so to really, no pun intended, empower them into getting there, whether it be, increasing their medical knowledge or working on their communication with families or giving them advice about professionalism and how to react in difficult situations. Just really seeing the person as a whole. And I think they can sense that. I have an open door approach. I welcome all the residents to talk to me. I want to hear feedback about what's going well, what's not going well. And I think I've been a really supportive sort of figure for them. And I hope they can all feel that. So yeah, that's one of the most important things in my role, is to really help them through this difficult time and to be there to support them.
Yeah, it's like you're now passing on all of your knowledge for then
Yep.
hopefully them to carry on that same attitude, that same mentality.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're the future generation.
Right. They're the future generation. And, the landscape of residency and medical education has changed. And so it's not helpful for me to just say, well, back in my day, we did it this way, so you need to do it. It's like, no, we need to evolve. Things are changing. We understand as a human race the importance of mental health and wellness and work-life balance, like all those words that we hear a lot. That's true. People are talking about them for a reason. And I don't want to be that person that's stuck in the ways of the thing, how things were done when I was a resident. I want to try to evolve and meet the residents where they're at now, which is, it's very different than when I was a resident, but I think it's a good different. And so we are supportive of that. I'm supportive of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for sharing your experiences with the podcast today. Being a pediatrician seems very interesting, yet has its challenges to it. And I'm sure that many young individuals listening will be inspired to learn more about our healthcare workforce. For everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed our 5th episode of our EmpowHer podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, check out our website, and watch our interview on YouTube. We got some more amazing stories and guests coming your way, so stay tuned.